This video offers an overview of the new IB course for the Group 6 subject of music, primarily intended for teachers, but could also be shown to students. The teaching of the new program for this two-year course begins in September 2020, with the first assessment designated for May 2022. This video should be viewed in conjunction with the music subject guide, along with teacher support materials that can be found in the Program Resource Center on MyIB. My name is Dr. Anton Luiten, and I will attempt to present the most salient features of the new curriculum in this summary. Firstly, I will focus on what significant changes have been made to the previous course. There were two common assessment components for both higher level and standard level in the previous music course, which required candidates to investigate connections between distinct musical cultures in the form of a media script, the musical links investigation, as well as a written examination that includes prescribed works, as well as other unknown extracts. Both of these components have been removed from the new course. For standard level students in the previous course, 50% of their total came from one of three options: creating, solo performance, or group performance. These options, formerly offered in isolation, now appear in an integrated fashion in the new curriculum. For higher level students in the previous course, both creating and solo performance were required for 50% of their course mark. Similarly, these components are now incorporated into the new course in a much more holistic manner. More on this later. Thus, to summarize the significant changes, the skills required for the musical links investigation will be assessed in a more integrated manner, and the requirements for the musical perception examination have been encapsulated into a more in-depth exploration of music and its context, aiming to strike a balance between both the musical and extra-musical findings within those investigations. With the integration of these skills and the freedom for students to explore any number of avenues in this more detailed approach, the learners are much more actively involved in a process of meaning and knowledge construction. One other positive attribute to this new design is that links to the Theory of Knowledge course could well be even more authentic, as problem solving is at the heart of this learning, thinking, and development. Our role as teachers will perhaps need to change here, as students will be more autonomous in their learning experiences. Thus, the options of creating, solo performance, and group performance will be integrated at various levels and form part of a broader area of focus. For example, students may choose to investigate relevant social, cultural, and political information about their selected music. This is the extra musical findings. Combined with musical practices and conventions, the use of musical elements and compositional devices, interpretations, and forms of expression. This is the musical findings. The integration of researcher, creator, and performer now occurs on multiple levels. And so now to the new features of the course. A music journal is to be kept for each student that demonstrates their engagement with a variety of musical processes, diverse musical material, and important musical roles. The journal is not directly assessed, but selected examples, findings, and musical works are to be prepared, where appropriate, for assessment purposes. The contemporary music maker is the only real obvious distinction made between the standard level and the high level student in this new course. This affords the high level student the opportunity to engage in both musical aspects such as composing, performing, and production, as well as non-musical aspects such as logistical planning, managing the process, and collaboration that culminates in a project inspired by real-life practices. The course recognizes that for 21st century musicians, learning to make music by engaging with a range of technologies is a fundamental skill, and thus it is a central aspect of this new curriculum. It is to be stressed, however, that a balance between digital technologies and more traditional skills for musicians should feature in the course design. As mentioned earlier, creating and performance are now seen under the banner of processes, namely experimenting with music and presenting music. Along with the process of exploring music in context, which largely involves studying and investigating music, these three processes offer a much more holistic approach to studying music in all its forms. Panning back now to a more macro view of the course, it has been designed to include areas of inquiry where students have the opportunity to engage with music from a range of diverse materials. Three contexts: the personal, which is music largely familiar to the student; the local, which involves music from the student's regional or cultural communities, likely to be less familiar; and the global context, which includes unfamiliar music from a variety of places, societies, and cultures. And finally, the musical processes, as mentioned earlier, that give students insights into how musicians work, develop their musicianship, and help them to become independent learners of music. They do not represent a chronological experience, but work together and inform each other. Within these processes, it is worth including the musical roles that the students will adopt. In the role of researcher, students learn to investigate music in authentic ways. In the role of creator, students make music by composing, improvising, and arranging. And in the role of performer, develop their skills in practical music making and delivery. To summarize how these roles, processes, areas of inquiry, and contexts interact, I have created this image that is fitting for how I see the various components of the course and the interplay between them. At the core is the roles that the students play: researcher, creator, and performer. These are solidified by the processes, which are seen as important aspects of learning and teaching in the music course. Students will engage with diverse musical material through four areas of inquiry. This is all framed by personal, local, and global contexts in which students are exposed to both the familiar and the unfamiliar. Finally, the higher level students complete a project in which they will need to demonstrate and explain how their work satisfies the demands of real-life practices. Beyond the roles and processes, I will pause now to focus on the four areas of inquiry, which have been put in place to ensure that a wide range of music is introduced to students that expands their horizons and provides new and exciting music stimuli for their own work. Note that these areas of inquiry do not prescribe specific musical works, but rather have been selected for their diversity and provides a framework that is intended to be used creatively to stimulate both students' and teachers' imaginations. Individually, each area of inquiry aims to functionally unite works. And so to the first area of inquiry, music for socio-cultural and political expression. This involves music that expresses and communicates cultural messages, conveys political ideas, and or helps to preserve social and cultural traditions. Some examples of this may include the following traditions. Second, music for listening and performance focuses on music that expresses and communicates intrinsic aesthetic values. This area of inquiry could equally be labeled absolute music. Examples of relevant musical materials may include the following genres. Third, this area focuses on music used for dramatic effect, music that supports choreographed movement or dance, and or music that is incidental or intended to purposefully serve as entertainment. Examples may include the following genres. And finally, this area focuses on music created, performed, and or produced using electronic or digital technologies. Such technologies are an important aspect of contemporary musical experiences, often transforming some of the ways that we understand and engage with music. Examples may include the following genres. These areas of inquiry are not by any means intended to be exhaustive. Some genres and styles may well lend themselves to being creatively explored through multiple areas. Students should consider musical intentions and purposes, the methods and techniques used to create the music, the role of musical conventions, and the impact and experience of the audience. Students are required to engage with the diverse nature of music, looking beyond their own contexts to explore music with which they are unfamiliar. From the global context, this includes music from a variety of places, societies, and cultures. Although branded global context, this could include music in closer proximity that has not previously been accessible to the student. Thus, it is important from a teacher's perspective to have a clear understanding of what constitutes the familiar and the unfamiliar to his or her students. As far as the local context is concerned, this includes music that has local significance, but that may be unfamiliar to the student. This is likely to be music from within the student's local, regional, or cultural communities. For the most immediate cultural context, the personal has high significance to the student and with which they are most familiar. This will contribute to their emerging musical identity. Discussion and joint decision-making between teachers and students is highly recommended when selecting the diverse musical material to be studied. The work to be submitted for assessment should demonstrate student engagement with diverse musical material. The music course identifies 3 integrated musical processes: exploring, experimenting, and presenting, through which students engage in relevant practical activities. Through these processes, students analyze diverse musical material, identify musical prompts relevant to their own work as researchers, creators, and performers, justify their musical choices, and prepare music for presentation. Through these processes, students will learn about musical conventions and practices while applying their findings to their own practical work. And so to one of the most important features of the course, which is to develop students' musicianship. The students' musical roles are central to the music curriculum as students develop their musical identity through exploring, experimenting, and presenting. While these roles are in continuous interaction with one another, each helps students better understand and practice these important musical processes while experiencing and using diverse musical material. All 3 roles are of equal value and should not be taught in isolation throughout the course. In different components, attention may be drawn to a single role, while others play a supportive role. It is to be stressed that equal attention should be given to each of these musical roles. And so to the 4 assessment objectives. These assessment objectives, or AOs for short, have been illustrated here in graphic form for explanation purposes only. For assessment objective 1, students are expected to demonstrate knowledge and understanding of specific content, contexts, and processes, namely to explore the relationship between music and its context. Identify information from academic and practical inquiry, and to present ideas, discoveries, and learning in authentic ways. For AO2, students are expected to demonstrate application and analysis of knowledge and understanding, specifically by experimenting with musical findings in local and global contexts, by articulating a clear rationale to support the musical decision-making processes, and by justifying the use of creating and performing elements. For AO3, students are expected to demonstrate synthesis and evaluation by communicating and presenting diverse musical conventions and practices. By purposefully presenting created and performed works, by making informed choices in communicating and presenting music, and evaluate their own work and the work of others. And finally, AO4 can be summarized as having the ability to select, use, and apply a variety of appropriate skills and techniques, such as select musical information in academic and practical inquiry through relevant musical skills and techniques, identify, select, and apply musical skills and techniques to shape and transform musical material, Demonstrate appropriate use of musical conventions and practices when creating and performing in diverse contexts. And for high-level students only, to work collaboratively to achieve defined musical project outcomes, and also for higher level to demonstrate planning, responsibility, and ownership in managing and completing a musical project. Thus, to summarize this information, the music course is student-centered and places the student creativity at the heart of holistic learning. Learning about music invites students to explore music practically and understand the correlation between the musical roles researcher, creator, and performer. Each role is associated with distinct musical competencies and skills. These musical competencies are directly linked to inquiry into familiar and unfamiliar music and to solving technical and creative problems. Finally, all components of the course should be experienced practically through authentic musical encounters and outcomes. Students must also understand the similarities and differences between solo music making and collaborative music making. Therefore, the following attributes will be developed. Communication and social skills through oral, visual, and written work, as well as through collaborating. Critical thinking and research skills by deciding what is relevant and useful for their own creative processes. And self-management skills by setting long-term goals and working on ideas from draft to final product. And finally, to the assessment weightings. Firstly, for standard level students. Exploring music in context is 30%, which consists of a portfolio submission, maximum of 2,400 words, one creating exercise, and one performance adaptation. Experimenting with music is also 30%, which consists of a written experimentation report, maximum of 1,500 words, 3 excerpts of creating, and 3 excerpts of performing. Finally, presenting music is worth 40%, which consists of program notes, maximum 600 words, composition or improvisation, maximum of 6 minutes, and presenting as a solo and/or ensemble performance, maximum 12 minutes, as well as performance excerpts, a maximum of 2 minutes. Experimenting with music is assessed internally, whereas exploring music and presenting music are assessed externally. For all of the details, refer to the guide from page 44. For high-level students, these musical processes are similarly assessed, but as 20%, 20%, and 30% respectively, to make way for the contemporary music maker, which is also 30%. This is unique to the higher-level program. Here, students submit a continuous multimedia presentation documenting their real-life project, maximum of 15 minutes, evidencing the project proposal, the process and evaluation, and the realized project or curated sections of it. Similar to experimenting with music, this is internally assessed. Just as with standard level students, exploring music and presenting music are assessed externally. I hope that this gives both music teachers and students a comprehensive overview of the new course. For all of the details, one should refer to the music guide, and any points that are in need of clarification should be posted to either my IB or my Facebook page, IB Music Teachers Worldwide. My name is Dr. Anton Luiten, and I thank you for your attention.